Welcome to the School of Imperfection podcast. I'm your host, Mikie. Today's guest is Dan Newmark, who is an old friend and also someone who's actually done the thing that a lot of us secretly dream about doing. Dan is a writer, producer, and co-founder of Grandma's House Entertainment. He's worked across scripted television, unscripted television, true crime, game shows, comedy, and most recently foul play with Anthony Davis, where very famous athletes prank other very famous athletes, which is apparently a real job someone can have. This conversation is not really about the resume. It's about what happens when someone looks successful from the outside, but still has to deal with imposter syndrome, fear, overthinking. Dan talks about learning to survive in an industry where almost everything fails, even at the highest levels, and how realizing that helped him stop treating failure like proof that he didn't belong. This is a conversation about taking swings, being seen, and not letting perfection wash all the good stuff out of your work, and accepting that maybe the people doing the thing are not fearless, they're just doing it anyway. Here's my conversation with Dan Newmark. Dan Newmark, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you.
Full disclosure, for those listening, I've known Dan for 20 years, but we haven't seen each other in a while.
Yeah.
And you've been, just conquering the entertainment industry.
Mainly ignoring you as best as possible. No.
Yeah, I've noticed. I've reached out many times.
No. Yeah, we go back to the college fraternity. Hey, no, I'm excited to catch up, man. It's been long. This will be fun.
Well, I always try to introduce guests and I always do a shitty job. So can I put that on you? Like, can you tell us what's your story, man? What have you been doing? What are you doing now? You just had a big release. How did you, you're very successful. You've done what a lot of people dream to do. And I think you've been doing that well for a while. Like, how did you pull this off? What's your story?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think probably like everybody, we're all looking at our world and getting used to our world and going like, I wish I was doing more. I wish I was, more success or this or that, or doing different shows, like, all those things. But no, the funny thing is that, back in college, when we were in college together, I wrote this script that I know you know about, but I'll just sort of rehash that. My brother and I wrote together that we shot ourselves. And this was back in the day when like MySpace barely existed. Like, we're dating ourselves a little bit. There was top eights. We were all worried about top eight. And we wrote ourselves, shot ourselves, and did a big screening. Long story short, there were assistants and people in the mailroom at CAA, and they saw it, brought it back because they loved it. And we pitched it and sold it to the CW. And so that was the first show that sort of broke us out and got us into the entertainment business. And then it was called the Wilton. It didn't go to series. It was between our show and Gossip Girl, to be honest. And I can't even say they chose wrong. Like, that's the bummer.
It's performed well.
They chose right.
Well, maybe they didn't. I don't know. I've never read your screenplay.
That's a good point. I'm guessing not as good, but you never know. That's the self-sabotaging part. But I think, no, it was between us and Gossip Girl. Warner Brothers was on board, CW, all these. It was a big moment of to celebrate what happened. And it didn't end up going to series. But at that moment, we ended up having a company called Fremantle Media who offered us an overall deal that was focused on actually scripted. So they are more known for like American Idol and America's Got Talent and a bunch of unscripted formatted stuff, but they were trying to booster their scripted department. So I jumped in with my brother, who we write and produce everything together. We did an overall deal doing mainly scripted stuff. There was a writer strike that led us to doing unscripted stuff. And so ever since then, we've been producing scripted and unscripted and had a bunch of different overall deals, a ton of different shows. And about 13 or 14 years ago, we started a production company called Grandma's House Entertainment because we used to, every Thursday for must-see TV, Seinfeld and Friends, our whole family would go and watch together at our grandma's house. And so that's what...
I, for some reason, thought it was like a reference to Grandma's Boy.
I'm just a diehard Grandma's Boy.
It's a great film,
I've based my whole life around that movie.
Sure. Yeah.
So and then we've produced a bunch of different shows, to your point, like everything from, we did the Catching Kelsey show with Mr. Travis Kelce, pre Taylor Swift, of course, and all the way to like the Misery Index, which was with the Impractical Jokers and sort of big shiny floor game show, and like a bunch of true crime docuseries that ended up doing really well on HBO Max and like both ranked in the top 10 for a while. And so like we've had some successes in different fields for sure. We had never done a true crime show. And the first one we did hit number 1 on Max and sort of lived for a while, called The Real Murders on Elm Street.
I didn't know that was you.
Yeah, that was us. So we made that. And so we've just, look, I've been doing this for so long. We're trying to test ourselves and get into different worlds. And so to your point, we just had a really big launch of a new show that did very well called Foul Play with Anthony Davis. It's a prank show with athletes pranking other athletes. And the first one was Anthony Davis and LeBron James and Rich Paul pranking Draymond. If you know anything about Draymond, you can imagine that went exactly how you would think. And it was great. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Brad, I don't, because I don't watch sports. I'm like,
Draymond has a reputation. I'll be honest. Draymond was really nice on set. Super nice, very fun. But he has this reputation because he's super competitive of like maybe having a short fuse or that's sort of maybe what the media might look at it. But I think it's more just that he's super competitive. Either way, we pranked him in a crazy way you can see online, where we basically brought him to a fake investment meeting, said we wanted him, and then we claimed he didn't have enough money to invest. And it got spicy for a little, but then all resolved and everyone had a good time.
Man, it's interesting, especially at that caliber that they would sign off. So at the end, he has to say, okay, I guess I'll let you put this on TV.
You know, it helps when Anthony Davis and LeBron are laughing with you and having a good time. And it was just one big joke. Like, I think he realized it was all good.
It was in good fun. Yeah.
That's how a lot of them have ended. I mean, we've done a bunch that are all, airing. I don't know if it'll be now or previous or when this comes out, but like everyone usually at the end just has a good laugh, has a good time, signs off, and we're good.
Man, that's so cool. How do you because that seems like, I mean, it's one thing to have an idea, but then when that idea incorporates like the biggest star athletes in the world, getting everyone sign off, like that's just something you've built up to figuring out how to do.
So the idea itself and the sort of original inspiration came from the Impractical Jokers and their production company, and we've worked with them a ton.
Okay.
There was this nugget that had been set up at TBS, and we were brought in to sort of all work together and try and build it out into a full show. I will say that we were blessed with not having to track AD. AD was in an episode of Impractical Jokers and really wanted to prank people. So that's kind of the genesis. And then when you're trying to cast the show and everyone knows AD is hosting it, it certainly helps.
Cool. Fair. Let me ask you this. Let me see if we can get real now. A minute before we started recording, we were chatting and I didn't know this, but we were talking about the idea of imperfectionism, perfectionism, the whole deal.
Sure.
And someone like you who's been operating at a pretty high level for a while now, and now operating at a super high level, one might think, well, this person's got it all figured out. There's clearly no perfectionism there, nothing holding him back.
Yeah, tell all my friends and family that.
Yeah, well, but so that's the discussion. And as much as you're willing to talk about, obviously, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable, but I think an element of this show that I want to do moving forward is sort of finding the true north of the episode. Like, what is the how-to? What's the takeaway, and what is the thing that I don't know your experience with either perfectionism or the pressure and how you survive and thrive and that whole part of your life.
Man, I mean, the struggle with perfectionism has been a part of my life for sure, for as long as I can remember, to be honest. And it was this notion, not necessarily like, funny enough, academically in school, but more just like socially and with family and with like people around me. The perfectionism didn't actually hit in a bigger way in terms of like that side of things until I got into like the workforce and was trying to produce shows and so forth. And that's when just like another element of perfectionism just politely jumped on board. But yeah, my struggle was always like imposter syndrome, I think. I think that fueled the perfectionism because I forever just was like, don't want to get caught with the concept of not being good enough and not knowing what people expect me to know. Yeah. And so I think for a long time, the baseline of my perfection was this idea that like, I need to present perfect or else I could get caught being an imposter in whatever situation I'm in.
They'll find out.
Yeah. Right. And then I'm like, but then in hindsight, I'm like, find out what? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. The world seems so unsafe too. And like everyone's attacking everyone for everything. And
totally.
it can feel that way, I think sometimes.
It can feel very heavy, and it can feel like everyone's attacking everybody and all of those things. I think the big unlock for me happened, to be honest, the personal unlock and the professional unlock happened at different times. The professional one unlocked sooner than the personal. The professional unlock for me was that, yes, I see like success everywhere, right, in our industry, but like more often than not, people are just failing left and right. I mean, truly, like look at the movies, look at the TV shows, look at people's everything, like podcasts and Instagrams, all these things. Everyone's failing all over the place.
Sure.
And so I just thought, I was like, well, if everyone else is failing, then the worst thing I can do is just fit right into that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the worst outcome is that I just am like everybody else, where I'm taking swings and failing.
Yeah.
And so I thought that like really de-escalated it for me, because I was like, well, if everyone else is failing, then that means maybe everyone else is somewhat feeling, up until a certain point, an imposter syndrome, because no one's hitting 1,000.
Yeah.
And so then it just took the air out of the tire of like having to show everybody that everything I'm doing is perfect, because it's A, impossible, and B, everyone else was presenting failures too. So then to me, that was the big unlock, was like, okay, great. I gotta be okay with failing quite publicly. and I have failed quite publicly, and I've succeeded quite publicly, but that was the big change for me.
Well, it's interesting. So like the switch, you kind of had this mentally healthy version of comparison is the thief of joy, because you were comparing yourself, but in a way that was good for you, where like, because I'll be like, well, that other person has, their company is more successful, or they're running with this crowd of like all these entrepreneurs who are like sharing all this stuff. And like, we're like that version of comparison. What you did was you level set correctly, which is there's all these people at very high levels still failing left and right. And that's something that I think about too, is like we take it for granted, like these actors and these actresses who are the face of these failures often, and they just get dumped on the director. And there's so many working parts, but they're the face, whether that thing succeeds or not. And I don't know,
You're totally right. I mean, it definitely wasn't always the case. I mean, early on, it was like, I think fear somewhat led the mission, of like, this must be perfect. I mean, so many scripts that I was afraid to turn in, because until you turn it in, you're still looked at a certain way. But then once you turn it in, it can only go down from here, and all those sort of like imposter thoughts, But I think the other thing, truthfully, that helped me to a certain extent is that like I ended up finding some success and shows that were working. And so I think that also helped to soften the blow of these failures, because I started just having way more confidence in my ability to do it. I heard a comedian once say that, like, this was years ago, I heard this, and he was just like, if someone comes up to me and talks about my blue hair, hates the blue hair, but I know as a fact I have brown hair, it's not going to bother me at all. I'm going to think they're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So his point was like, if you just believe enough in you that all the other stuff that comes your way doesn't faze you, then like it doesn't matter. So like I've seen so many comments of shows that I've done of just like anywhere between this is incredible and amazing and oh my God, I love this, and on the same show, people being like, well, this is a huge piece of shit.
Really?
For sure. And that used to faze me so much more. I'd be like, no, it's not. I'll prove to you that it's not. It's better than what you like. And who are these people that I'm like basing it on? And like at a certain point, I had to be like, I know I can do this. For the people that are saying, I don't know if you can do this, that's not a me problem. That's a you thing.
Yeah.
And it's not always that way, but that along with that failure part that I was talking about really helped the professional perfectionism start to go away.
So working through it, you just had to keep going.
Oh yeah. And like, I loved overthinking, not just thinking, but overthinking. And then overthinking about whether I'm overthinking.
Yeah, same.
So I thought through this a lot, this element.
So you've thought about it.
I thought.
Same. I thought about it too. I've thought about it one more level than that.
One more level. What's your takeaway?
What's my takeaway as to what? Overthinking or?
No, like your perfectionism and how you approach it.
Well, Lord knows it's a problem. I found that the thing that I used to think fear was a sign that it shouldn't be done. Meaning, if you were afraid, it's your intuition saying, don't fucking do this, for most of my life. And I'm 41 now and 11/12. So, learning the difference between fear and intuition, because I think there is intuition is a real thing, and figuring out which one's which one's talking, and how to differentiate that, and just doing it scared. Like I started posting these weird little painting videos a year ago, and I didn't like posting about myself on Instagram. I always hid behind the brands I was developing. I actually just wrote a little article about this on Substack. But the idea of, for me as an entrepreneur and a brand guy, I always like to build brands. And it's like, I would build brands for clients and still do. And then I would build my own on the inside. And often the brands that I was building or the companies that I was starting were just kind of like shields that I was hiding behind as to what I wanted to say.
Wow.
At the time. Yeah. And so a couple of years ago, I started this meditation company called Good Standard. And it was just because I was into meditation at the time.
Dude, I didn't know that.
Why couldn't I just talk about that?
I grew up meditating. I didn't know
really?
that. Yeah.
Do you still meditate?
Occasionally. My dad and mom met on a TM meditation retreat, and my dad was like, and they were both like super into the TM movement. And so I think that's like, meditation's incredible. I mean, that's a super important skill. I think, but I resonate with a lot of what you're saying, for sure.
Really? Yeah.
I think that fine line between what is appropriate fear and what is anxiety or intuition, or what's the appropriate combination when making any sort of big decision or going out with anything, I think is like extremely difficult to find. And unless you're someone who's just like totally, maybe I'm wrong. My thought is, unless you're someone who's just like very disconnected from self, don't how you don't feel that.
I don't either, because I wonder that, like, the people who basically don't mind being a raging out or don't mind being hated, and almost seem to get off on it.
Oh my God.
I have a weird envy of that. I'm like, how do you
just turn into a huge asshole just for a year? Let's see what happens.
Like a social experiment.
Totally.
Like Andy, what's his face?
Kaufman.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
Okay, maybe,
Yeah, just try it. I feel that for sure. There's like a carefreeness of like, if you can be that big of an asshole,
right,
then you actually must be way more carefree than I am or than Mikie. Like, because clearly you care less about perception or your work being displayed or whatever it is, because...
Or are many of them at home in the fetal position when you can't see them being like, oh my God, why can't I stop doing this?
I have this image of a guy that I'm thinking of as a huge asshole, and now I'm picturing him in the fetal position crying. That's, I mean...
You don't know. Yeah.
Kind of hope.
Yeah. Well, and there's a healthy, and it's easy to say, well, just don't care. Why do you care what other people think? Like, well, the internet is me, and like, you're trying to do stuff, and like, you're taking swings, and people like you who are putting yourself out there, and me in different ways, like, it's scary. And that's where perfectionism kicks in again. It's like, well, is this what I want to be seen? Is this the version of myself? And that's kind of the brand thing that I was talking about, where it's like, eventually I was just like, well, fuck it. I got to do it scared. And I can't do all the things I want to do if I'm having to create a brand out of everything. So I'm just going to start being me, and I'm not perfect, and I'm probably going to say some dumb shit. And
I think that the difference at the end of the day between, this isn't revolutionary, but the people that do it and the people that don't, is that they just don't let fear stop them.
Yeah.
Like, I can't subscribe to the idea that fear just doesn't exist for big batches of people. Like, it can't.
It feels like it doesn't for some.
And maybe it doesn't. And maybe the asshole, the Fred, maybe Fred,
what's his name?
He just has no fear, and he's not crying in his basement alone. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. Or with friends.
Yeah.
There's a really fun, it's not a poem. There's a poet. He's like an Instagram poet guy, and also just a regular poet guy, but I follow him on Instagram, St. Darby Hudson. Okay. And he types up these great little moments. And he has one that says, "You are a mountain of tiny courages." And I saw that, and I screenshotted it. And that was my mantra.
I love that.
Putting myself up. Because it's weird when you're doing it on your Instagram. It's like your friends from high school. There's something weird about that,
Big time. I mean, in some ways, with the shows that I'm doing, they're such a big platform that it almost might affect me less because it's not as personal. Like it's, I wonder, I can imagine if, really putting yourself out there directly to the people you're closest with and growing from there, in some ways I would think could be certainly more scary. And I think that, I love that you're doing it. I mean, like I have other friends that are starting stuff and their first post is always like, hey, I'm going for it.
Yeah.
You're like, fuck yeah, go for it.
Yeah. There is this weird, like, I don't know, emotional sphincter you have to cross through just for yourself, not for anyone else, but just to say, hey, by the way, I know you don't care, but I'm saying this for me, that I'm going to start doing this now. So when you see me doing it, I told you that you could leave if you want it,
And if there's one takeaway on this whole thing that I will walk away from is that I'm not using the term emotional sphincter.
I coined that, by the way.
That's a great term.
You can use it. You can license it.
I will. I'm going to write a script called Emotional Sphincter. And see.
Emotional sphincter? Okay. I want credit.
Okay.
Well, why don't we talk about what's next? And thanks for going deep with me. I appreciate it. This is always cathartic.
Yeah, dude. I think that I love this. I think that the more people that talk about it, the more it feels like a problem shared is a problem halved, and that whole thing. And so I think that, like, unless I feel like I'm somehow just totally different than everybody else, we all have to be going through versions of this. And, I do think that, like, through really deep diving into it and therapy and a bunch of different areas, like I've come out with a healthier outlook at the moment where I'm feeling pretty good. And like, I'm not as fazed by the judgment on the shows, and I got a great wife and kid, and like, things are, I'm pretty happy with the way it's going, but that doesn't mean that, like, to get there for sure wasn't tough, and have to believe everyone battles these same things.
Yeah, I think so. There's like a house of cards thing for me where, and especially right now, and this is true, becoming more and true. It was more true a little bit ago, is like this idea of authenticity in marketing and social media. And people more and more are wanting the truth, less and less, the polished brand shield, who's hiding behind that thing. And I think for me, in wanting to share the things that I'm doing, the only way I can do it is if I'm being forthcoming about all these things that are why I want to share my art. I want to share my book. I want to like hype myself up, but I'm not that guy. I'm the overthinking guy, like the perfectionist guy. And if I want to share these things, and if I'm lying, if I feel like I'm lying, where I'm like, guys, come check out my newest novel, Todd and the Uncanny Valley, and I feel like that was a house of cards. You know what I mean?
Here's what I would say to that. I battle with a version of that, not the same, but like what I would, and I'll tell you in a second, but like, I think then the thing that makes it different is you. Like, everyone can present like perfection, or a lot of people can, and sell something perfectly and all this stuff. When I'm hearing a pitch, for example, when I'm trying to figure out like the voice of a character, I'm trying to figure out everything but that. Because that's what makes them interesting. That's what the flaws and the struggles and the battles that someone's either been through or currently going through, and how that presents in whatever their work is the only way that it won't feel like AI created. Because that's, at the end of the day, your story and your personality cannot be presented, perfected without just washing it clean of all the good stuff.
Here's the real thing. And these are my favorite things, like about like Anthony Bourdain's of the world. He would talk about his fucked up life, being addicted to drugs. Like, I want that.
Yeah.
I want the story, Otherwise, I'm watching someone's LinkedIn post, or.
Are you ever jealous of people who are just so openly authentic about their flaws and struggles, and you feel for them, but you're also like, damn straight, you have the strength to just talk about it,
I think I'm trying to be that to get there, basically. And it's hard because sometimes, even for this, like, I've wavered. I'm like, should I just call this thing like How to Earth? And it'll just be fun little talks. And I'll take out the mental health aspect. I'll take out myself. And I'm like, well, then I'm back in this like full of shit realm. And what service am I providing? What am I doing this for? Because for me, I think for this to have value, I want it to feel like there is that service.
Yeah.
Well, wait, you touched on something that I don't want to lose, but we got to talk about it. AI.
Sure.
In what capacity is that affecting you? What do you think about it? Do you hate it? Do you like it?
I do not like it at all.
Okay.
I see that some positives will come from it. I see that positives are coming from it.
Right.
The overall negatives that seem to be unavoidable, in my opinion, and I don't know enough about this, but like from the research that I've done, juice not worth squeeze.
Right.
I don't know your take on it, but no one can convince me that these self-learning machines that eventually will self-learn at such a degree, at such a speed that it will go full parabolic.
Yeah.
And we will be unable to stop it. And like it'll get in the wrong hands. It'll be I don't see how it feels safe. And I know that like, maybe that's fear talking, like we were bringing it back.
Sure.
I just am like, yes, it's making different elements of life easier and work easier, but at what cost? And that cost isn't worth it to me.
Fair. So for you, it's the Terminator scenario that is the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Do you think I'm blowing it out of proportion?
I don't. Well, like I have so many mixed feelings, and generally I share all of the concerns. The water usage thing, not great. And also, by the way, all technology has a massive water toll, including this one, all social media. And I think that's the thing about AI is, especially because a lot of my world in client work is this narrative of you use it or you're screwed. And so I think a lot of us feel maybe held hostage in this way where it's like, okay, well, this is fun. It is helpful in a lot of ways, so, and if I don't use it, I better start getting real good at plumbing or something hands-on.
1,000%.
Probably not a terrible idea, but
I agree. I have no choice but to become good at it. That's clear. I think everyone has to become good at it. I'm still certainly afraid of where it's going.
Right.
If I had to bet my life savings on whether we'll look back at in 20 years and go, yikes, what a bunch of idiots we were running around blindfolded doing this thing, or what a great moment in our history. I mean, I'm pretty confidently betting well, if we even make it,
but maybe AI takes us to the utopia, or maybe it leaves us like her, which is an underrated. Remember how they all just evolved and they're like, we're going to go. We hope you figure it out, but you won't.
That would be amazing.
And signing off on that note.
Anything else we should touch on before we go outside? It was good to see you.
No, man. It was so good to see you. Thank you so much for doing this. I know you're busy, and congrats on the new show.
Thank you.
If you ever want to do this again or do an in-person thing or come on down to San Diego, we'll go to the zoo. I have a zoo pass.
I too have a zoo.
Do you?
If you ever want the LA zoo, we can.
Okay. Yeah, we could trade zoo situations.
We can have a zoo.
There'll be part 2 where I go to your zoo.
Exactly.
Where you come to mine.
Yeah, people
are waiting for that.
People are dying to see what we do at the zoo. I get it.
I think they are. Well, man, thank you for all things and congrats again. And I hope we stay in better touch. And I don't know, I'll hit you up next time I'm in LA.
Please do. Congrats to you too, man. It was good to see you.
Likewise. Thanks, man.
See you, bud.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the School of Imperfection podcast. If you are interested in exploring these ideas and more with us, don't forget to follow and subscribe to catch every future episode. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to leave us a rating or send us an email to share your thoughts through www.theschoolofimperfection.com. We're always looking for more guests as well. So if you feel like you have an interesting perspective or a topic our podcast has not covered or has, we'd love to connect with you. I'm your host, Mikie Crystal. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.